It's no secret that I hate Norfolk Southern. Everyone knows it, I've talked about it in multiple videos, it's nothing new. But if you were talking to me 10 years ago, I would have been praising Norfolk Southern. I mean, think about it. Around the early 2010s, the railroad was locking in from a railfan's perspective. A wide assortment of locomotive models, a steam program, heritage units, popular railfan hotspots. It was a railfan's dream railroad. And, well, I saw that too. So much so that me and my family did a road trip to Altoona in the summer of 2013. And throughout the 2 nights staying there, through the few photographs and videos I have of it, boy, it was a trip I admittedly took for granted. And for a change of content and hopefully the start of something new, let's take a look back to when I was in Altoona. So around this time or so, to set the scene, I was still in grade school, but my love for trains only continued to soar. I had only started recording trains with the rather, crappy cameras and horrible cinematography. Yeah, a lot of my shit from 2014 or so is so cringy to look at. Especially since I was terrible at getting the shots of the trains and, well, my finger took up half of the shot. Yeah, you'll be seeing that more in my archives and you'll hate me for that. But, around this year in 2013, I had heard about Horseshoe Curve through various Google searches and, well, videos of Norfolk Southern probably. And I convinced my family to do a 5-hour road trip to this railfan's hotspot. I can't find the exact dates on when we went there, but from what I'm gathering, it seemed like it was around the summer of 2013, particularly in August. There was no photographs of the journey getting there, and I cannot recollect anything from there, aside from maybe stopping by a hobby shop and picking up some MTH catalogs for some reason, and spending the night in Altoona. Which hotel it was, I have no idea. My memory is pretty faded from this. And now we come to the part you clicked on for. I went to Horseshoe Curve. Not surprising. So, generally speaking, this location is pretty scenic. It's rather nice. I can understand why they made a railfan location about it. This part of Pennsylvania is pretty scenic, and I gotta thank my father for taking these pictures to help fill the visuals, so kudos to you, Father. You rock. So climbing the stairs, it only took a few minutes before the first train showed up. And remember that poll I did like a few days ago? So to the 1,000 of you that voted, now's the time to place your bets and to see what the actual first locomotive was. And to that, here was the first train. So, to the 20% of you that voted the SD80 Mac, congratulations! I did not expect 20% of you guys to vote for that. It was a pretty good first impression. And keep in mind, these were the first Norfolk Southern locomotives I have seen ever. This was way before I've seen them as foreign power. So, this was surprising. And looking at this catch nowadays, is probably the best damn thing I've seen on Norfolk Southern. I guess to my recollection, the SE80 Macs, at least a majority of them, were assigned around this area in Pennsylvania for like coal drag, I think? Knowing the fact that all the 80 Macs are now extinct, it only makes me cherish this catch even more. Do I look back on this fondly? Yes. The next train of this trip was your typical Norfolk Southern train at the time, which consisted of just 2-9s. And if they're rebuilt in AC-44 C6Ms, I'll just flash them on screen right now.
Yeah, Norfolk!
This wouldn't be a trip to Horseshoe Curve if you didn't see the helper units in action. And here's a pair of SC40Es. Between the third and fourth train, I was able to somehow meet one of the modelers from Jointed Rail. Who exactly, I am not sure. But if memory does serve me right, they were getting screenshots or such for a potential Horseshoe Curve route. And I do remember them giving me a business card which showcased one of the CSX SD40s in YN2. I don't know if they'll remember me, but yeah. The fourth train, and the last one through this footage, was a Norfolk Southern manifest with a pretty surprising leader. Yeah, it isn't the only ex-Conrail dash shade I've ever seen, but it was nice catching it and seeing the RS3L in action. It sounded pretty nice. As for the Dash 9s, I'll flash on screen if they're rebuilt. It did have this unique freight car on it, which was pretty nice, but aside from that, mostly your typical Norfolk Southern train. And some much needed action from the helpers. Why I chose not to stay at Horseshoe Curve long enough was beyond me. But I would say from the 4 trains there, they were plentiful, and gave me a pretty good taste of Norfolk Southern. So me and my family chose the next location, that being the Rartor's Memorial Museum, which showcased a bunch of historical rolling stock and quite the beautiful interior, with a lot of historical artifacts, and I think I remember they had like a model setup or something? Yeah, there's not very many images from when we went to the museum, aside from the outside, but I do remember they had a wooden train table with a bunch of Thomas Run Railway items. And it's quite neat knowing the fact that I actually own a couple of the old 1990s and early 2000s stuff that I never thought I would have. That's going to be a future video soon, don't worry. I did see a stacker train and I ended up recording it, but my dumb self for some reason deleted it.
Look at this stupid piece of shit!
I do not recount what the power was, and given that my memory's horrible, I don't even know what it was, but it probably was just your typical GE shit. My father, however, did get this pretty nice image here of some SC40Es going up the Pittsburgh line, I think. And the last location of the day was like passing by Juniata Shops. There was a side road which gave a good view of the turntable, and I initially didn't see a lot of this stuff, but thanks to some photos from my father, it does able to see some of the cool shit that was parked in the Altuna Shops. And you might be familiar with this. This is one of the, I think, plaque featuring a replica of a Norfolk Southern locomotive. And a statement which aged horribly, mind you. And then we got to the turntable pit. And then we came to where all the shop tracks lead into a turntable. And oh boy, does it get a lot more interesting. So Cue the next montage. The third day was, well, we checked out the hotel in the morning, and we swung by a pedestrian bridge overlooking the yard. Now, not a whole lot happened, but just looking through the few photos that I have, there was, like, little activity going on. There was a stacker train parked out, like, right on the main line, which had a Dash 9, an SD60, and a Gevo. And overlooking the yard, you had some SC40Es, like, sitting in the yard. What looked to be a yard job at action. And a trio of wide cab SD60s just sitting there. And after that, we just went home and the trip was over. So, looking back, the Altuna trip was a bit of a hit or miss trip. Do I wish I would have done more? Yes. Keep in mind, I was only a grade schooler who had no experience with, like, how to handle a camera and was overall ADHD as shit. But in hindsight, as much as I could reminisce about how things would have been different if I got a better camera, what's happened has happened, and what I have now is a pretty interesting time capsule of, like, a fun family road trip to when I went to a pretty good railfan hotspot. Either way, I do hope you enjoyed this long yap session with, like, very little visuals to keep you entertained. Like, I didn't have to jiggle keys in front of you, because literally these photos are probably what's going to be occupying most of this video. Anyways, this is County Productions, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, folks.